Hello guys. Have you ever built a fortress to protect your future, only to find you've walled yourself into a tomb? This is for the one who followed all the rules and still lost the game. The glow of the phone screen was a sterile blue fire in the dark of his room, burning another hole in what was left of his world. A LinkedIn notification. Rohan Sharma has started a new position as a software engineer at Microsoft. Below it, the comments bloomed like funeral wreaths. Congratulations. So deserved. 100 tiny digital pats on the back. Kael's thumb hovered, then scrolled. Instagram. The next blow landed harder. A picture of Rohan, grinning, arm around Anya clinking glasses against a city skyline. The caption read, "Celebrating new beginnings with my one and only." Kael stared until the faces blurred into mocking shapes of light. The silence in his dorm room wasn't empty. It was heavy. It was a physical weight pressing on his chest, filled with the ghosts of every laugh he dodged, every invitation he declined, every girl he'd classified as a distraction. He had made a pact with himself. Sacrifice now, succeed later. Love was a variable to be declared after the main function was compiled. But the code had failed. The program had crashed. He had no job. He had no one. He had no one. He had nothing but the four walls of this room and a suffocating echo of his own catastrophic miscalculation. He was the architect of his own ruin, and the foundation was finally giving way. The floor felt like it was falling out from under him, and he was falling with it into a cold, silent, and infinite dark. The campus became a landscape of his failures. Every corner held a mirror to his inadequacy. Groups of students spilled out of the library, their chatter about offer letters and signing bonuses, a language he no longer spoke. Couples walked hand in hand under the jacaranda trees, their casual intimacy a brutal spectacle he could only watch from behind a window. He was a ghost haunting the edges of a life he was supposed to be living. His roommate, Samir, came back one evening and tossed a box of cheap sweets on his bed. He'd accepted an offer from a mid-tier IT firm. Not Google, not Microsoft, but a door out, a start. He saw the blankness in Kael's eyes. Samir sat on the edge of his own bed, his voice soft with a pity that felt like acid. "Just take something, man," he said, unwrapping a sweet. "Anything. This obsession with the best is killing you. It's just a job. Life isn't a race. Just get on the track." Samir's words were meant to be kind, a hand offered in the dark, but Kael heard only the anthem of surrender, settle, compromise, become a footnote in someone else's success story. He pushed the box of sweets away. The temptation to agree, to take the easy path and let the pain numb over, was immense. It was a siren song for the shipwrecked. But some broken part of him refused. It was the same stubborn part that had locked him away to study for years, the part that had whispered, "You are better than this." That voice was a curse now. It kept him from accepting peace and mediocrity. Instead, he retreated deeper into the only fortress he had left. His laptop. He lost days to video games, entire nights to pirated TV shows. In the digital world, he was powerful, a strategist, a hero. The dopamine hits were small comforts, temporary anesthetic for a terminal condition. He was hiding from the wreckage, pretending the fire wasn't consuming his room. He was a king ruling over a kingdom of pixels while his real life turned to ash. Then came the collision he could not avoid. Professor Verma. A man with a reputation for breaking students or forging them into something unbreakable. Kael had avoided him all semester, submitting assignments electronically, skipping optional lectures. But his final project required a face-to-face evaluation. He stood before Verma's desk, a thin folder in his trembling hands. The professor didn't even look at his report. He looked at Kael. His gaze was sharp, analytical, like he was debugging a faulty piece of code. "Your work is clean, Kael," Verma said, his voice flat, logically sound, efficient, but it has no soul. It's a perfect machine built to do nothing of consequence. Kael mumbled something about technical specifications. Verma leaned forward, the kindness in his eyes gone, replaced by a scalpel. "You've been hiding all year. I see it in your submissions. You solve the problem. You never explore it. You build walls. You never build bridges." He tapped a finger on Kael's resume, which lay on the desk. "I've spoken to recruiters. They say you are technically brilliant, but conversationally dead. They say you answer questions like a machine that is afraid of giving the wrong output." Kael felt his throat tighten. This was not feedback. This was an execution. "You think life is a meritocracy? That if you get the answers right, you win the prize?" Verma's voice rose, not in anger, but in a terrible, focused intensity. "You have walled yourself off from the entire human experience, thinking it was a distraction. You treated connection like a bug in the system. And now you are surprised the world won't run your lonely program? You have not been focusing. You have been hiding. You built a prison of logic and discipline and are now rattling the bars because you are starving to death inside it." Every word was a hammer blow against the fragile walls Kael had built around his heart. He wanted to argue, to defend the sacrifices, the lonely nights, the sheer effort. But the truth of Verma's words was absolute. He wasn't a disciplined monk. He was a coward. He was terrified of rejection, of not being smart enough, of not being good enough. The fortress wasn't to keep distractions out, it was to keep his fear in. He fled Verma's office, the professor's final words chasing him down the hall. Your greatest failure isn't your empty resume, Kael. It's that you have nothing real to put on it. Back in his room, he shattered. Not with tears, but with a horrifying, silent implosion. He saw it all. The years of telling himself he was on a noble path, when he was just walking a circle in a cage of his own design. He saw the faces of people who tried to reach out, faces he had turned away from in the name of focus. He had betrayed himself, trading a chance at a real life for a prize he failed to win. Giving up seemed like the only sane option. He could go home, accept a local job, and let the ghost he had become fade completely. He sat in his chair for hours as the sun went down, the screen of his monitor reflecting a hollow-eyed stranger. This was the bottom. This was the place where you either learn to breathe water or you drown. He stared at the game icon on his desktop, the portal to his comfortable digital escape. His hand moved to the mouse, a familiar reflex. But then he saw it, and the dark reflection on the screen. The pathetic, empty stare of the man he had become. A ghost. A collection of unused potential and profound regret. A switch flipped. Not inspiration, just pure, undiluted rage. A rage directed entirely at himself. At the boy in the reflection who had willingly traded his life for a lie. His hand, instead of clicking the game, dragged the icon to the trash bin. Then another. And another. He deleted the shows. He wiped the hard drive of every escape. It was a digital amputation. He was cutting off the parts of himself that kept him safe and small. The price for moving forward was everything that had kept him comfortable in his misery. There was no plan, there was no flash of insight. There was only the raw, terrifying decision to walk out of the cage and into the fire, with no guarantee he wouldn't get burned. He started with a single, excruciating step. He walked out of his dorm and went to the campus coffee shop, not to study, just to sit. He forced himself to occupy a chair in the middle of the room, not a corner. He made eye contact with the barista and said thank you, hearing the rust in his own voice. It felt like lifting a mountain. He began coding again, but not for a grade or a job. He found an open-source project for a nonprofit, something complex and messy that involved collaboration. He joined their online forums. His first few comments were clumsy. His ideas were challenged. One user, a girl named Maya from another country, tore his logic apart with a polite but ruthless critique. The old Kael would have deleted his account and crawled back into his hole, humiliated. The new Kael stared at her feedback. He felt the sting of it. But underneath the sting was the clean, sharp edge of truth. She was right. He spent 2 days rewriting his code, incorporating her suggestions, thinking not just about efficiency, but about usability. He posted his revision. A few hours later, she replied, "Much better. This is strong work." 3 words. They felt more real than any grade he had ever received. He applied for a final interview, a small startup he'd previously ignored, thinking it was beneath him. The office was chaotic, nothing like the corporate campuses he'd dreamed of. The founder, a woman not much older than him, conducted the interview. She asked him the usual technical questions, and he answered them. Then she put his resume down. "Tell me about a time you failed. Not a project. You. When did you personally fail at something important?" The air left the room. He could give the safe answer. The rehearsed story about a challenging project with a valuable lesson learned. Verma's voice echoed in his head. "You have nothing real to put on it." He looked at the interviewer. And for the first time in his life, he chose to be real instead of perfect. "I failed at the last 4 years," he said, his voice steady. "I pursued excellence as an excuse to avoid connection. I built my entire identity on a single outcome, a top-tier job, and I sacrificed everything for it. My friendships, my self-respect, my own growth as a person. And when I didn't get that job, I discovered I had built a skyscraper with no foundation. I didn't just fail a project, I failed myself." He laid it all bare. The isolation, the fear, the arrogance, the profound loneliness of his self-made prison. He spoke until his throat was dry. He expected her to look at him with pity or to dismiss him as unstable. Instead, she just nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. When he finished, the silence was heavy, but it wasn't the suffocating silence of his dorm room. It was a space he had cleared with the brutal truth. He didn't get the job. But as he walked out of that building and into the afternoon sun, he didn't feel defeated. He felt light. He had faced the thing he feared most, his own colossal failure, and he had spoken its name. He had survived. The victory wasn't a line on a resume. It was the quiet, indestructible knowledge that he would never hide from himself again. He would never get back the 4 years he'd spent in the dark. He would carry the scars of his isolation forever. But he now carried something else. A core of truth, forged in humiliation, that could not be broken. He didn't get the prize he bled for, but he found the self he had abandoned. You don't win by avoiding the battle. You win by surviving it. Like, share, and subscribe if this story touched something real. And don't forget to visit my YouTube channel to watch more interesting motivational, thriller, and fictional stories.